So what phylum are we talking about? Yeah, they're fish, but that's not the phylum. Yeah, these are all vertebrates from here on out, okay? And what class are we talking about? Maxini? I don't know if it's Maxini or Myaxini. And is there anything that's significant about this class? Two things. One, they don't have a jaw. That's why they're called jawless fish. And what might a second one be? What is their diet? You're going to have to speak up a little louder. Carnivorous? Well, it's a form of carnivorous, being carnivorous. Which it could be a form of being herbivorous too, but you're not going to have these animals do this feeding on plants in the seas or in the oceans or even in fresh water. What does that mean? So they are feeding on dead fish, which means it's other animals, which is true, but in this case, these animals they're dead, they're dying. So with that means then that they're scavengers because they feed on dead or dying fish. Okay? So one of the things we sometimes refer to, whether it's lampreys is one type of jawless fish, and hagfish is the other. Okay, I had to think about that for a moment. More so, the hagfish is sometimes called the knotfish. Okay, because one of the things that we think of anytime that we see a fish, especially when it comes to that of the sharks, which means what are two structures that are the most recognizable when it comes to that of sharks? Maybe three structures. Okay, could be the tail, fin, maybe number 3, and then the jaws might be actually at number 1 or number 2, along with that of the dorsal fin, because that's what you see sticking up out of the water is their dorsal fin. So that's what they're known for in seeing these animals. When it comes to the hagfish, they don't have any fins on them. So it looks like just one long snake. Well, if that is the case, okay, and they don't have a jaw, okay, think about it in this case. I can't make my shirt long enough, but I can do this. Okay, this is probably a better representation. Okay, and that would be if you have, just an ordinary glove. Okay, so if we put this glove on and I try to press down on things, and that works just fine. Okay, I can move things because my hand is in this glove. But what happens if I take my hand out and then try to move things? Yeah, it might move it, but not be able to move it from one side or the other because there is no structure behind that, because there's no finger bones in there. That's the clue. Okay, so if there's nothing on there, it doesn't matter how hard I keep trying to push or pull with this, I can't do anything. But once I put my hand inside, now there's fingers in here. Now we can actually move that. Okay, so with that, if these animals don't have a jaw, so there's no rigidness, just like if there's no fingers in this glove, it can't do anything. So how do they actually take a bite, do you think? And the clue was given is not just the hagfish, but they're also known as this, we said. The what fish? The knot fish. So they tie themselves in a knot. So when they do that, okay, they actually create a little bit of leverage. Just think of when or if or when have you ever had a tie on or had to tie your own tie? Okay, what you're going to do is you're actually creating a knot. So then you got two tails, and then you're sliding that up. So it's just getting tighter and tighter and tighter. So the knot fish does the same thing. They tie themselves into a knot, and as they're doing that, they compress harder and harder and harder to rasp off and take a chunk of flesh out. And that's what we're talking about here. They rasp off pieces of tissue with that of their tongue, which is not unique to the animal kingdom, because we've also seen other animals that do a rasping structure with their tongue. From last semester, who does a rasping function? Because it's with a radula. What animals have a radula? Nope, those are vertebrates. We want invertebrates. Snails, slugs, octopods, squid, clams, all of them are mollusks, so they have a radula, so they rasp off pieces of tissue. Okay, then this is one of the characteristics that we see. A lot of these animals live in salt water. Okay? Because typically what happens is, in order to stabilize this osmotic pressure, okay, it's going to try to pull out, if it's a freshwater fish and it swims out to the sea, okay, it's actually going to start to balloon up, okay, because of the osmotic pressure. But if a saltwater fish comes into freshwater, okay, it's going to pull a lot of the fluid out of their cells to balance out that osmotic pressure. Usually we refer to this concept as being hermaphroditic. That's what would be in worms, where they have both male and female sex parts. But in this case, okay, even though both of them are found, only one of them will become functional. And you could say maybe it's unique to the animal kingdom, but different modes of reproduction also take place in reptiles. It's the idea that it's the temperature that's going to determine the sex of the animal, not any type of fertilization or anything to that effect, which is rather strange, you could say, in the animal kingdom. Okay. Okay. A chondrocyte, okay, is a type of cartilage cell, okay? So now we're talking about animals that are cartilaginous, and with that we are talking about, as you can see, the most notorious animals for being in the ocean. Because we say it could be notorious good, it could be notorious bad. We had that that conversation last week. Okay? Because if you are a philanthropist, you may donate money to local charities or local organizations, so you're notorious for that. Okay? I don't have that problem, but other people may give money away. That's what makes them notorious for that. Or it could be notoriously bad, okay? And you could say maybe criminals, for instance. You could say maybe Jesse James was on that fence in the 1880s or 1890s. Was he a criminal for robbing banks? It gave him notoriety, but I'm not saying, I don't think he gave money to the poor like Robin Hood would have, but That's what we mean by notoriety. Now, as we look at this, okay, there's something missing here that you need to think about. Okay? So it's one of the things that we had said that some of the first things that you think of when it comes to sharks. We said the dorsal fin, maybe the tail fin, but also the jaws. But okay, so yeah, they've got powerful jaws, but what are we not talking about up here? That I'm not saying that we should put it here, we're making you think about this. What gives sharks their notoriety besides their fins and their jaw? Something a little more specific. Their teeth, that's right. Okay? So one of the things that I, for instance, like to make reference to is, okay, you've got this fancy car. It's painted up really nice. Not a scratch on it. Very low mileage. A lot of power this car has, but the transmission don't work. Is that a problem? Okay. But you got this shiny new car that's got all this power. Great. So what's the problem? But that doesn't explain. Yeah, it's transmission. So what does that mean to you then? Yeah, you can't go anywhere. The transmission's not functional. Yeah, you have this really nice car, but you're just not going to be able to go anywhere. Okay? When it comes to these animals, if you have a lot of these very sharp teeth, what good does that do if you don't have this to actually run the jaw? If it doesn't have a powerful jaw, those teeth, it really doesn't matter. Okay? And you could say on a similar note when it comes to like that of maybe snakes, especially the large types, okay? The constrictors, okay? And if your hand gets caught in the jaws of a python or a boa or an anaconda, it's going to hurt, but it's not going to be nearly as bad as putting your hand in the jaw of one of these animals. Because should that get caught in here, you're probably going to lose that limb. I mean, that jaw clamps down, chances are it's going to snap right through any type of bone, just like that. Okay? So that's what we mean. What good do these teeth do if they don't have a powerful jaw behind it? Okay. So what might be some of these? It just says well-developed sense organs. So we're in water. What might that be? Okay. And that's actually called a lateral line system. So when they're detecting water currents, it's not just the changes in that current, but even the electricity given off in those water currents. Very good. What else? Can they see very well? Maybe not. Can they smell? Oh, yes, they can smell. Can they hear? Oh, yes, they can hear. Okay? And I don't know if you want to, let's say, be more specific. I don't know if it's the sound that they're making or if they're just picking up the vibrations in water. Okay? One of the things that I think has maybe changed my perception of any type of aquarium or fish tank is if you've ever seen Finding Nemo, which I'm sure you have, when Darla comes to visit, okay, walks up to the aquarium and does what? Yeah, starts tapping, well, I'm on the top, tapping the side and saying, fishy, why aren't you? Something like that. So is that damage? Yeah, possibly. I mean, I'm sure it probably disturbs them, and you really don't want to have a lot of loud noises in there. To me, I would probably think it's probably pretty similar to getting right next to someone's. It's not that you're yelling, but if you are within inches of their ear, that's probably going to be annoying if you're talking really loud. Okay? So yes, well-developed sense organs with that. Smelling, not so much seeing, but probably tasting. Yep. And along the sides of its body. Okay. So if we're talking about this, what type of sense do you think we're talking about when we're referring to olfactory organs? Is it eyes? Is it hearing? Is it smelling? Is it tasting? Or is it feeling? It's linked to taste, at least it is in humans. Right, it's smelling. So what happens is, none of what we have this week, I don't think, unless maybe you've put mustard on your subs, okay? Not only are you perhaps tasting the mustard, but the back of your throat, those scent molecules not only pass behind the back of your throat, but also go up into your nasal cavity. So you're not smelling it directly, but if it's in your mouth, you can actually smell with your mouth as well, in an indirect manner. Okay? And sometimes maybe that's stuck out. I'm chewing this, why am I smelling it? Well, that's why. Okay. So we're referring to buoyancy. If the number is less than 1, like for instance that of ice, okay? Ice has an approximate density of 0.91, we'll say, grams per cubic centimeter. So what does ice do in water, soda pop, milk if you were to do that, which I think would be strange, but you still could put ice in milk, and what's it going to do? It's going to float. So when we're looking at these animals, the density of sharks might be, rather than 0.91, maybe it's somewhere around 2.10 grams per cubic centimeter, which means it's greater than that of water, or 1. So that means rather than floating, it continues to sink. That's if it's not moving. You can actually drown a shark. You can't drown them because they're living in water. They get oxygen from water. Well, that's true. But what do you think specifically, how do they get that oxygen from the water? And here's your clue right here. Okay? Because one of the things that they do is they will swim with their mouth open. So as they are moving forward, their mouth is open, water comes in through their mouth, okay? It passes over the gill structures and gill slits and goes out the sides. So once it passes over the gills, it naturally extracts that oxygen through the process of diffusion, okay? But if it's not moving, not only is it going to sink, but it's also going to, you could say, drown, really. So for anyone who's ever watched Shark Week before, which I used to as much as I could when we could actually get the Discovery Channel. When researchers are trying to, let's say, tag a shark where they need to keep it immobile, well, we know two things are going to happen. If a shark's not moving, it's going to sink and it's going to drown. So they maybe have a type of side compartment. I've seen them do that in boats or ships. And then they take a really, really large not garden hose, but maybe even that of a fire hose. Okay? So they will take that, they will put it in their mouth, and the water just shoots in through their mouth and out the sides. Even though it's not getting any water through its mouth, that water passing over the gill structure, it can still breathe. Okay? And one of the things we don't know why, but this would actually be fairly, what I want to say, accurate, like on this slide presenter. One, I don't think you can see it there, but one side is gray, the other side is black. Okay? One of the things that happens is that nature selected many types of sharks to have two different types of colors. They're white on their belly side, and they're gray on their top side. Why would nature select animals to possibly do that? It has something to do with hunting. Right, because if you are looking down from the surface, all you see is gray in the background along with the top of the shark. But if you're looking from below up towards the surface, all you see is white, and that's going to blend in with the background. So through many successive generations of natural selection, selecting that trait to be more successful, you get more food. Okay? And another aspect when we talk about jaws, what is significant about the jaws of sharks? Not that, besides they're powerful, besides they've got sharp teeth, there's something else about sharks that's rather unique to the animal kingdom. They can be big. Do they line up like they do for that of mammals? Of course, not birds because they don't have teeth, or reptiles, okay? But what that means is, I don't know if we want to call it a, not so much a prehensile jaw, but sometimes I think it's called an overbite, maybe. Just that little extra, you could say 3 millimeters maybe, gives that animal that much more of an opportunity to be successful. And if it is successful, nature selects that animal to pass it on to its offspring. Okay, so coming up this week, tomorrow we'll probably start watching, it's called the Virtuarium. And it's a rather unique video that talks about different types of sharks that we see in the ocean today, and talks about sharks that used to roam around the earth millions of years ago. The reason that that's significant is it sets up our opportunity to possibly on Friday have an activity to, they're called dogfish. It's a very small type of shark that will actually cut and dissect and fold open and look at the internal anatomy of these animals. So tomorrow we'll start talking about their predatory life. All right, that's all I have. We'll catch up to you next time.